Hello everybody and welcome back. It's Graz once again, and today we're going to take a look at the Terra blade versus the Horseman's blade. Now this is something that you, the viewers, have requested, and this is kind of like a pre-1.3 Swords of Greatness video. Basically, we're going to be evaluating them because, again, before 1.3, these were really awesome swords. But now we have the Influx Waiver and much more. Anyway, this is going to start off a little bit different because normally I would do the training dummies, but with the Horseman's blade, you cannot do that. You actually need mobs to trigger the pumpkin. So first, we'll start off with a boss fight against Skeletron Prime, where we'll measure each sword, and then from there, we will transition into the straight-up test. For our first matchup, we're going to go ahead and use the Terra blade, and for armor, I'm going to go ahead and use solar flare gear. This may not be a little bit fair, but at the same time, we're going to use solar flare gear for both of these swords, so that way it's even and it's balanced for everything. Accessories are all set to warding, so that way there is no extra added damage. That way we can make things, again, nice and even. And also, for the Horseman's blade, I'm not going to be using any kind of spawner. This is going to be a head-to-head matchup, nothing really set to balance tip the scales, so we'll stick with that. Well, with nighttime here, let's go ahead and get this started. So we'll bring in our first Skeletron Prime and get things going. Now, the thing with the Terra blade is, of course, it does shoot the projectile sword. It is on a slight cooldown. It doesn't swing with every attempt, but it does go with like every other. It's very difficult to pinpoint the exact cooldown on it, but again, it's very limited. It's very short. You really don't notice it that much. But again, the ability to get ranged off of this really good sword is very helpful, to say the least. Now, this is really great for boss battles, especially for those that you don't want to stay near. And in cases like this, where you got bosses that kind of float away and they make you pretty much chase them down. So either way, we're going to go ahead and keep the pressure on you. So we're doing what? Not exactly the best damage here. So we got, yeah, between 200... Okay, there we go. We get a little bit closer and the DPS jumps. Though, overall, it's very... There we go. Overall in this situation, this really isn't too much of a challenge. We take one arm down. We could sit back and focus on the head, but as you can see, when we start making physical contact, DPS jumps up. When we don't, it kind of slides back down to between about 150 to about 250. And we are just making continual contact here. So we should be able to clear this well before midnight, it looks like, which is good. Again, I'm not going to judge on time because I don't really have a watch or anything set up, so I can't tell exact times with this test. But clearly we can see that even with just that ranged, this does do pretty good damage. Once we get involved with the physical aspect, damage does spike up a little bit. Oh, okay, now you're completely defenseless. Good. And again, this is where having that projectile comes in really good handy. Now, we're not doing much damage there because his defense is picked up, but there we go. Okay, not bad at all. So the final number itself is a bit deceiving. That says 532, though we know that is not the case. It's fairly between 300 to 500, but I wouldn't rely too much on it. I'd say probably closer to 300 to 400. Either way, it's a very good sword. It should not be discounted, and it gets the job done. Now next, we're going to go ahead and switch it up to our good friend, the Horseman's blade. Now this doesn't have the projectiles, but what this does have the pumpkins. So once you make contact, it's going to go ahead and bring out, there we go, there's our nice pumpkin projectiles. And again, they have to come out when you make contact with a mob or enemy or anything like that. So we definitely have to make contact. It's a little bit of a drawback, but the pumpkins do a lot of damage, so this is really helpful. Also, it should be noted that the thing that makes the Horseman's blade a little bit different is that you cannot use your cursor to, like, control the direction you're in. So once you're in a direction, you have to stop swinging and use your keyboard / controller, whatever, to move in that direction. It's very interesting. Not really, you know, much. It's not anything big, but it's just something that's there. You have to keep in mind sometimes. Especially for someone like me who likes to just swing his cursor all around. So yeah, that quickly becomes a thing. Alright, so numbers. What are we doing on numbers? Yeah, once we start making connections, look at this. DPS goes up a little bit more, but look at all these pumpkins that are coming out. they're actually doing pretty good damage, and you see the numbers start jumping up. It doesn't have that real pop factor like the Terra Blade does, but when you start getting a lot of pumpkins on screen, you can see a lot of damage is starting to be done. So again, this is probably going to be somewhere close within the Terra Blade's range. That would not surprise me one bit. Now again, most people would not do it this way. We're doing this as a heads-up, kind of like a hand-to-hand, heads-on kind of thing, if that made any sense. Basically, we could just set up a spawner and attack the spawner while the pumpkins did their thing to Skeletron, but then what would the point of that be? That would kind of negate the whole fact of us being here doing this. We're here to see what things look like hand-to-hand, head-to-head. And it still seems like we're doing pretty good. But there we go. Again, once you start putting spawners out and you use the spawners, then you kind of get rid of that whole range thing automatically. You don't have to worry about it. Yeah, see, now you're trying to fly away from me. Now you're just being a big jerk, Skeletron. Now, if we can get you to come down, please. There we go. 13,000, so that's not too bad, all things considering. As long as we don't despawn him, he should be still around here somewhere, right? There we go. Hold on, buddy. Yeah, he wants to run. 5,000. This should do good damage to him. Oh yeah, we did about, what, about 1,000. Right, maybe we won't be able to finish this because, quite frankly, he's a runner, he is. But either way, you get it, the whole idea. If you really want to bring out the most in this sword, then go ahead and use the spawners, because again, you won't be doing the silly thing I'm doing. Oh, he's almost done. Oh, you're under 1,000. Come on, friend. Come on, friend. I think it's daytime now. That's why he wants to go ahead and do this fight. Come on. Get down here. Oh, it's almost daytime. Alright, well, we got this under control. Alright, for this test, we're going to go ahead and do the DPS aspect of this. I don't have any armor, so there's not going to be any extra buffs to this sword. Again, everything's warding, so we're not really getting much out of this. The Terra Blade itself is normal, so we'll do the range aspect first, and then we'll go in for the melee, and then we'll do our multiples in the same fashion. So what we have here looks like between roughly 133, 135, and 100 and maybe 10, 109. So we got a wide range of damage here, just from the projectiles alone. As you can see, we're hitting between 250 and about 290. Not bad at all. Now we're starting to go down a little bit as things even out here from our boss battle encounters. But it's actually doing really good, and that's just the range aspect in itself. As you can see, it does launch projectiles at a pretty nice rate. Almost a 1-for-1 rate, which is really good. And again, we still stick within that 250 range, between 250 300. It slopes off a little bit, but then, of course, we have crits come in, and it does make the kind of difference. Alright, so yeah, I would definitely say between 250 to 300. Again, it starts to drop down a little bit, but then we'll get a couple crits, and then things pick right back up. Melee, and of course the range aspect of this, the projectiles. And we definitely see a big boost here. Not bad at all. Say about what, 400, 450? We go from 420 all the way up to about 460. There's a 480, and then we go 466. So again, we'll let this run for a little bit and see where she lands. But it's basically a double. You're doubling it, which is really cool to see. We sit here and try to let it run for at least a minute to get an idea of what we have. And then, again, we'll have to go ahead and switch things up for the Horseman's Blade, because we have to actually include the ranged aspect of that, which isn't triggered. Again, you have to use mobs. So for the most part, it's actually holding up well within the 400 range of damage. We've seen it go from 420 all the way up and then all the way back down. So not bad at all. Putting into that, now we're going to go ahead to this area where we have our ranged with multiples. And of course, this goes through several dummies, and you can see right there we already have damage jumping through the roof. So this is going to pass through 3 dummies, and you can see, yeah, we're up around 800 damage per second, which is really cool. Again, it almost has that 1-for-1 swing when it comes to the projectile. making it very helpful. Again, this is actually pretty good for crowd control too. It shouldn't be discounted just because it only launches one sword. The one projectile does do damage. Yeah, we are definitely hanging up in the mid to upper 700s until we get to the lower 800s. So pretty fair to say the least. Again, and you don't have to worry about hitting mobs in order for these to spawn, which is something very nice. Alright, so yeah, it dropped down to about a 6s. Again, when you start getting more crits, it jumps up to past the 800s. And yeah, we're just kind of back and forth. So probably about around the mid 700s, which is, again, this is really cool. Switching it up, we'll go in for the melee aspect, and because of the sword's range, I could probably just sit here and then do this. And as you can see, I'm hitting them all with the melee, and I think at least one with the range. It's kind of hard to gauge. Either way, again, numbers very high, up around 1200, almost 1300 damage per second. Very cool to say the least. A little bit scary, though, to be in this kind of situation, because again, you have the potential to take a lot of damage, but hey, you're also dealing it, so that's the dangers you face when you get into kind of close-range melee with multiple enemies around. So it definitely looks like we're sticking around the 1200s. I've seen a 1300 sneak in there. There's some more 1300 sneaking in there. Not bad at all. I've seen a 14 actually sneak in there. So that's what happens when you start hitting them crits really, really good. Alrighty. Oh, this is actually looking really good. So it's starting to hover up around more of the 13s once you start getting crits reliably. So if you actually get some of the lucky modifiers on your accessories, it is very possible to get even more damage out of this. If lucky is your kind of thing and getting those crits. Again, that's more of a boss kind of deal, but at the same time, you can also down bosses much faster if you can survive the encounter. I'm more of a warding kind of person myself, but to each their own. Alright, first up we'll take the single DPS challenge with this. We'll see where this leads to. Now, again, this sword does have a pretty wide arc, so you'll be able to get some range on this, but at the same time, it doesn't have any projectiles to shoot, because, again, we don't really have any mobs here to hit. So, no mobs, we have melee, and, yeah, because of the speed and everything, it's around 175, and it drops back up to about 185, 188, there we go. So, again, base damage, this is where we get real fun at. So here we have good old skellies. And now we're gonna see, yes, all the pumpkins come in, we're seeing the numbers go up a little bit more. And even then, this doesn't really do it much justice. The spawner could do a lot more. So we see, oh, we're up around 300. And again, especially in an invasion type event, your numbers are gonna be much higher than what we're seeing right here. So right now we got what, I've seen 370, then it jumped up, then it jumped down. So we're kind of all over the place right now, especially seeing how we haven't really maximized this area. It's not too bad, 388, 309. So, in this setup, as you can see, we've got, look at that, we've got pumpkins that don't even know what to do, they're just hovering around. So we've gone from the 300 range all the way up to about almost 400. And even then, the pumpkins are just waiting, they're all just waiting for something to happen. It's very funny, I see a 397 in there. So for the most part, I have to say, overall in this whole competition, or whole, whatever you would like to consider this, I would like to say that the Terra Blade is my favorite sword, and I'm not going to show, well, maybe we see a 413 in there we go. I like the Terra Blade, and it's always done good for me, but if you want the most easiest, probably the fastest way to do boss fights, you're looking at the method right here. Get yourself a couple of spawners, set it up, attack the spawners, and have the ranged pumpkins come in and do the damage for you. Now again, we could have done that against Skeletron Prime and made things much easier, but at the same time, you know, we wanted to have a fair fight one-on-one. But you're seeing right here is probably the most easiest, and probably, you know, the least hassle, really, a way of doing this. And it ranges from the lower 300s, we've seen areas 250-something. Yeah, again, we're being limited right now by the amount of enemies we have on the screen, but look at all them pumpkins flying around. So this is pretty much on par with the Terra Blade, roughly. While this isn't exactly the best method of doing it, you can still see that it does a lot of damage, and how many pumpkins we got on screen is insane right about now. We'll actually stop here in a second to see how much these pumpkins actually do damage against the skeletons. It's kind of cool. There we go, look at that. Yeah, numbers are starting to jump up again. 447, there we go, 407, 5, 470. Yeah, no, that's definitely there. So, if you really want to make it the easiest, get yourself the Horseman's Blade and set up a little spawner and just bring them pumpkins on in. But at the same time, Terra Blade should not be discounted because it is a really good sword. The projectiles shoot really, really fast. And again, they do really good damage as well. I think the pumpkin sword is really great for invasions and kind of like the moon events, Frost Moon, Pumpkin Moon, where it really does good job at crowd control. Terra Blade should not be discounted either, though. Overall, I guess I would give it to the Horseman sword because, again, just look, we got pumpkins that don't even know what to do with each other. Then when they do start attacking, look at that, we've had some pretty sharp spikes. It's a very close contest, but at the same time, the Horseman's Blade can actually be used to just make boss fights much more simpler. Even if it is, some may consider it cheating, though it's not really. It is taking the easy way out. But, I mean, let's just look at the pumpkins everywhere. Anyway, that's going to do it. Take it for what it's worth. Let me know what you think down below in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. I know a lot of people do like the Horseman's Blade, and this does kind of render boss fights a little bit easier when you can do damage like this, but I'm still a Terra Blade kind of person. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Keep an eye out for more videos, and I'll see you again next time. The video's over, but there's more where that came from. Be sure to subscribe for more Terraria Let's Plays, Top 5s, and other videos as well as we cover different titles. You can click on one of the videos here for more. Be sure to rate this video accordingly as it helps the channel out greatly. Have yourself a wonderful day, and I will see you again next time.